Welcome to Understand All. I'm your host, Aslakir Gerleif. Today, we're embarking on a fascinating journey into the world of tuberculinum, a homeopathic remedy with a surprising connection to one of history's deadliest diseases. Imagine for a moment a restless spirit, always seeking change, never content with the status quo. It's a feeling many of us can relate to, right? Well, what if I told you that homeopathy has a remedy for that very restlessness, and it's derived from the bacterium that causes tuberculosis? Now, before we dive in, let's get one thing straight. We're not talking about actually using tuberculosis to treat restlessness. No. Tuberculinum is a highly diluted homeopathic preparation. It's so diluted, in fact, that it's unlikely to contain even a single molecule of the original bacterium. But more on that later. First, let's talk about tuberculosis itself. According to the World Health Organization, in 2020 alone, around 10 million people fell ill with TB worldwide. That's more than the entire population of New York City. And tragically, it caused 1.5 million deaths, making it one of the top 10 causes of death globally. But here's where it gets interesting. In homeopathy, tuberculinum isn't just used to treat TB-like symptoms. It's what's known as a constitutional remedy. That means it's used to treat a whole range of symptoms and personality traits that are thought to correspond with the remedy. So, what kind of person might benefit from tuberculinum? Well, picture someone who's always on the go, constantly seeking stimulation and change. They might be dissatisfied with their current situation, whether it's their job, their relationships, or their life in general. They might even be prone to anxiety or mood swings. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wait a minute, that sounds like half the people I know. And you're not wrong. But in homeopathy, it's the totality of symptoms that matters, not just one or two. So how is tuberculinum actually made? It all starts with a sample of tuberculosis bacteria. But don't worry, it's not like they're just bottling up TB and calling it a day. The bacteria undergo a process called potentization, which involves repeated dilution and shaking. In fact, the dilutions are so extreme that by the time you get to what's called a 30C potency, you'd need a sphere of water 30 trillion times the size of the Earth to find just one molecule of the original substance. That's some serious dilution. But here's where it gets controversial. According to homeopathic theory, the more a substance is diluted, the more potent it becomes. This idea, known as the law of infinitesimals, is one of the main points of contention between homeopathy and conventional medicine. Critics argue that these ultra-high dilutions are nothing more than water, and that any effects are purely placebo. Homeopaths, on the other hand, believe that the water retains a memory of the original substance, and that this memory is what triggers the body's healing response. It's a debate that's been raging for over 200 years, and it shows no signs of slowing down. But regardless of where you stand on the issue, there's no denying that tuberculinum has a fascinating history. It was first developed in the late 19th century by a British homeopath named James Compton Burnet. Burnet was known for his unconventional approach to homeopathy, and he was particularly interested in using nosodies, remedies made from diseased tissue or pathogens. Burnet believed that nosodies could be used to treat not just the specific disease they were derived from, but also a wide range of chronic conditions, and tuberculinum was one of his favorite remedies. In his 1890 book, The New Cure of Consumption by Its Own Virus, Burnet described using tuberculinum to treat everything from asthma to eczema to mental illness. He even claimed to have cured several cases of tuberculosis itself with the remedy. Now, it's important to note that Burnet's claims were anecdotal, and they haven't been substantiated by modern scientific research. In fact, using nosodes to treat infectious diseases is highly controversial, even within the homeopathic community. But Burnet's work with tuberculinum helped to establish it as a major remedy in the homeopathic pharmacopoeia. And it's still widely used by homeopaths today, particularly in cases of chronic disease and constitutional treatment. So, what does the research say about tuberculinum? Well, to be honest, there isn't a whole lot of high-quality scientific evidence to go on. Most of the studies that have been done are small, poorly controlled, or simply anecdotal. That said, there have been a few interesting findings. For example, a 2010 study published in the journal Homeopathy looked at the use of tuberculinum in the treatment of ADHD. The study found that children who received the remedy showed significant improvements in attention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity compared to those who received a placebo. But before you go rushing out to stock up on tuberculinum, it's important to keep in mind that this was a small study, and its results haven't been replicated. Plus, ADHD is a complex condition that requires a multifaceted approach to treatment, not just a single remedy. Another area where tuberculinum has shown some promise is in the treatment of respiratory conditions. A 2014 study published in the journal Complementary Therapies in Medicine found that a homeopathic complex containing tuberculinum was effective in reducing the frequency and severity of asthma attacks in children. But again, this was a small study, and it used a combination of remedies, not just tuberculinum alone. So, while it's certainly intriguing, it's not exactly a smoking gun. Perhaps the most interesting thing about tuberculinum, though, is what it reveals about the relationship between homeopathy and conventional medicine. Because while homeopaths are using this highly diluted form of tuberculosis to treat chronic conditions, conventional doctors are using very real, very undiluted tuberculosis bacteria to develop vaccines and treatments for TB itself. In fact, one of the most promising new TB treatments in recent years is a drug called bedaquiline, which was developed from a compound found in a soil bacterium. Bedaquiline works by inhibiting the bacterium's ability to produce energy, essentially starving it to death. It's a far cry from the gentle nudges of homeopathy, but it's a reminder that sometimes the most effective solutions to our health problems come from the most unlikely of places. And that brings us back to the idea of tuberculinum as a remedy for restlessness and dissatisfaction. Because in a way, isn't that what we're all looking for? A way to find peace and contentment in a world that's constantly changing? Maybe the real lesson of tuberculinum is that sometimes the answers we seek are right in front of us, hidden in plain sight. Maybe the key to finding satisfaction isn't in constantly seeking something new, but in learning to appreciate what we already have. And maybe, just maybe, the next time you find yourself feeling restless or unsettled, you'll think of tuberculinum, and remember that even the greatest challenges can be overcome, one tiny, diluted step at a time. So what do you think? Is tuberculinum a miracle remedy, or just a placebo in disguise? Is homeopathy a legitimate form of medicine, or a pseudoscientific relic of the past? These are big questions, and there are no easy answers. But one thing is for sure, the story of tuberculinum is a fascinating one, and it's a reminder that the world of medicine is full of surprises. Who knows what other secrets are lurking out there, waiting to be discovered? So, keep an open mind and never stop learning, because in the end, that's what Understand All is all about. Exploring the wonders of the world, one fascinating topic at a time. And with that, we come to the end of our journey into the world of tuberculinum. I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into one of homeopathy's most intriguing remedies. If you're curious to learn more, I encourage you to do your own research, and to always approach any new treatment or remedy with a healthy dose of skepticism. And of course, if you're dealing with a serious health condition, always consult with a qualified medical professional first. But above all, remember to stay curious and never stop asking questions. Because who knows what other fascinating discoveries are waiting just around the corner. Until next time, this is Aslakir Gareleaf, signing off from Understand All. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on our next adventure into the wonders of the world.